Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker. We are all too familiar with the narrative surrounding wide-scale support for the LGBTQ plus agenda. The normalization of this agenda is now infiltrating our elementary schools and is built on disinformation that boils down to a simple concept, that God made a mistake. Gender confusion, same-sex attraction, the internal battle that rages in the souls of many is a desperate cry for help. But what if there were forces at work to actually criminalize, demonize, and legislate the prohibition of organizations offering help to those struggling with this rapidly growing social, spiritual, and mental crisis? Stephen Black has been the executive director of First Stone Ministry since 2000. He's worked in full-time Christian ministry and leadership with First Stone since 1993. He was ordained with International Ministry Fellowship in October of 94. He's the author of many articles and teaching aids and appears each month right here on the third Monday of every month at the 11 o'clock hour. You can find out more about him at firststone.org. Here to host this Freedom Realized Hour is the author of Freedom Realized, Finding Freedom from Homosexuality and Living a Life Free from Labels. The executive director of First Stone Ministries is Stephen Black. Stephen, so good to see you, my friend. So good to see that we are continuing to air this program on a monthly basis. And although last week our Facebook page was hijacked, completely hijacked, it was actually a blessing in disguise. It was either hijacked by a Vietnamese hacker or a Cambodian hacker who put up two videos on our website. One was a video of how to offload ducks off of a semi-trailer. It got 1.7 million views. The other one was how to harvest catfish in Cambodia. Now, of all the things that somebody who hijacked our Facebook page could have put out there, think of the horrible things they could have done. But we got 1.7 million views, which actually launched us into the stratosphere of the largest single viewing episode ever to appear on the Igniting a Nation Facebook page. And it was how to offload ducks off of a semi-trailer in Vietnam. And it was actually really interesting and kind of a really cool and ingenious way to do it. So we had to go through, in order to get our page back.
I've seen that video.
Yeah, in order to get the page back, we had to send a copy of my passport and legal documents, and Facebook gave it back to us after we were able to prove that we were owners. We thought that this was a potential censorship, but it was actually a full-blown hack, and that's all they put up there was two videos that got a whole lot of views. So we still have, and we put it out there, and I say this because I want our audience to know that there are ministries like yours and many people who are being censored, who are being cut off from Twitter, from Instagram, from social media, talking about this very real situation, and it's being categorized as hate speech. And there is nothing hateful about what you and I stand for. Nothing. As a matter of fact, I cannot imagine two more loving people for the heart of those that are struggling with any sin whatsoever. Yeah. Now, the Bible very clearly has separated this area of sexual immorality and sexual sin as a very separate and distinct, because it is the only sin of those listed that you are doing to yourself and to the temple and the body of the Lord. And so that's why it's been elevated to its New Testament levels. But our love and hope for those that want help, for those that are steeped in their lifestyle, for those that are happy, if they can truly be happy in a conflicted with God circumstance, this message is not for them. These are not services we're offering to them, nor is First Stone offering to them of going out and scouring the streets and trying to pull people off the streets and shove them into programs and stuff them with materials and education. This is to offer a service that says that if you're struggling, if you find yourself at a crossroads where you're contemplating suicide, you're contemplating an uneasiness and a vexing inside of you of conflict and confusion, like anybody in any area of their life who's seeking help, help should be made available to you. And you should not be deprived of that help. And the move underfoot is to deprive you of that help. That's the underlying theme of the legislation, the executive orders, and the move to stop ministries and doctors and psychiatrists and psychologists from even offering any kind of counsel in this area. And it disturbs me so greatly because there are hurting people out there. And where can they go if the government and the society cuts off all support for those who freely are practicing a lifestyle, no condemnation, but come to a crossroads? It's very biblical. Jeremiah talks about when you come to that crossroads.
Right.
Seek the ancient path and there you'll find your peace. If we don't give them the ancient path, are we doing what Scripture commands us to do? And this is the reason why we have this program on every month, is because we want to give this expression of love, this expression of opportunity for anybody who has it on their heart that they are in or entertaining or having thoughts or are confused or have been molested or need help in navigating what it's doing to their lives. And this has been your heart since you came out of your situation where you were molested, you were sexually abused, and were actively living a homosexual lifestyle until you found out that you were at that crossroads and you needed help.
That's right.
Imagine where you would be had there not been help for you. You certainly wouldn't be the married man and grandfather that you are today. You would be possibly dead.
I would be dead. I would have been dead. Because the Lord actually warned me the very night I surrendered my life to the Lord on August 6th, 1983. I just had my 38th spiritual birthday. And recalling even that situation was a really another epidemic of a mysterious disease that cropped up in all the hospitals in Oklahoma City that summer. We now know it as HIV and AIDS, but back then they called it the gay disease, gay-related immune deficiency. I mean, it's out there. People can actually Google it and see that that's what they originally called it, because it was 99% of male homosexuals coming down with this terrible disease. Excuse me, half the people that I knew by the time Robin and I got married 3 years later were dead. The people that I knew in the gay community in Oklahoma City. It was tragic. And these people that want help should want to be able to find help, as you were talking about. And you've got now all of these power brokers that are politically bowing down to the narrative of orientation and really false science concerning people change and transformation. Firstone did a survey. You got 3 APA doctors that did a study on men who were religious that wanted to seek sexual orientation change efforts, and about 70% in both studies show conclusively that those who did the hard work and wanted to remain free did so. And when we look at countries like the Scandinavian countries, where transgenderism, homosexuality, gay marriage, all of that are like 20 years down the road from where we are, and they still have the same outrageous, disproportionate suicide rates in any bracket, in any bracket that they look at statistically, that transgendered people still, even in those countries, have a 41% rate of suicide even after they transitioned, and so-called in an accepting culture. The transgendered proponents, political proponents, would say it's because we have such a negative culture that's causing these people to want to take their lives. And it's exactly the opposite. It's not giving them the hope that they don't have to go through this body mutilation and all of the subsequent factors of trauma that happen after the transition, as you hear like in Walt Heyer's story or Laura Beth Perry's story in his Image movie. These people are out there. He reported that over 100,000 people in 1 year contact his website for information on transgender regret and transitioning. And so it is imperative that the gospel of Jesus Christ continues to move forward, that we're not afraid. The thing that my staff and many other ministries, and looking at what this acting president would do, and he did even on Inauguration Day, which is interesting that most people haven't even caught on to, that he's basically signed the Equality Act by executive order. He called it a little different, but making LGBTQ behavior synonymous with the civil rights status of gender and race. And so we have a very hostile culture. And I think it's ironic that you started today's program with those videos, because it was funny. And it reminds me of Psalms, I believe Psalms 5, where it talks about the creator of the universe is in the heavens laughing. And he does laugh, and he laughs at the stupidity of our pushback on his beautiful ways, his precepts, his testimonies, his statutes, his commandments, and the perfectness in his design, and how man thinks that he is so much wiser. And when I think of the awe of God and the majesty of his mind, it is mind-boggling. And he laughs. And I've reminded my staff, even this year, we've been focusing in on what is the Father's heart in the midst of what is the coming persecution. Because no doubt there will be persecution. There already is. You can see it happening on the East Coast and on the West Coast, where pastors are being fined over the COVID thing, and social gatherings, and church, and in Canada, people are going to jail over the issue of proclaiming that there can be freedom and that homosexuality is a sin. You have this going on in Europe, and it's like, what will God do? Well, I think he might laugh, like the duck video, and realize you guys think that you have it figured out. Well, he is going to reveal himself in amazing ways, revealing the truth, and he is going to ignite this world. Literally, he's going to ignite this world. But before that great and terrible day, I think there is going to be a movement of his spirit where the enemy has tried so hard to push these dark narrative ways of chaos, right? The whole sexual revolution of the 60s and where we are today, with Bruce Jenner being paraded about as this model of transgenderism, and the level of mental illness and demonic activity around this is all getting ready to be just, I think for those that are seekers of truth, it's going to be like pulled back and revealed, and God is getting ready to do a work of grace and an outpouring of his spirit. And that's what we sense. How that's going to come about, we do not know. We just know that he is faithful. He's always been faithful. He's been faithful in our own lives. When I look, Rabbi, at 30 plus years now of ministry, and anybody that knows these types of ministries know that we live very meagerly. We have a very very tight budget in the way that we operate. When we go on trips and things, that's other people taking care of those finances. We really don't have a lot of money. And yet my wife and I have always had everything we've needed. We've always had not an extravagant home, but a nice home. We've had, I thank God for crawling in my warm bed every night, and food and clothing. And we've always had what we wanted, and even extra. And so, God is taking and using people to do pastoral care and giving people hope on the front line of what we call, freedom realized, right? The title of my book. But being able to really enjoy a freedom, not without struggle, not without difficulty, but a freedom where there can be the possibility of a life of joy and peace in Jesus Christ as Lord. And that's what we're about. You and I are about that. This is about real love and boldly telling the truth, and we're never going to stop. The only way they'll be able to sequester my voice would be to put me in a jail cell. And even then, if the Lord gives opportunity, I'm not going to stop talking. They'll have to literally kill me to stop me from telling the truth of the glorious good news of Jesus Christ coming into the world, God incarnate, taking this place, took on himself the sin of the world, and died so that man could be set free from their own sin by the grace of God. That the literal very presence of Jesus would come to live inside of me 38 years ago, a man who was so sexually addicted and perverse in thinking, and transform me. It is amazing. My love and those, and Rabbi, we're talking hundreds, many hundreds of men now that I have ministered to over the last 38 years that I have seen absolutely transformed. And some of these guys, I've got a few of them in my mind, and I think about they're very attractive, very successful, got beautiful wives, several children. A couple of these men have, enormous businesses and are very blessed, and nobody would ever know that they ever struggle with homosexuality. And I think about those, and then I think about some of the people that have come through our ministry staff that are now in China and Bangkok and other places in the world doing ministry. So the idea that people have to be locked in this lifestyle of LGBTQ plus sign is really an absolute complete lie. That there's no truth in that. And so we have to be faithful to really love boldly by saying, there is another way. Jesus has another way if you want it.
As I think back to the genesis of all this, in the 50s when I was growing up, we had no knowledge of cross-dressing or, this was all very secretive. I think back to the Greek and Roman theater where there were no female players, so it was just men taking on female roles, and maybe that stuck. Maybe that became a break in their psyche where they were constantly being forced to play the part of a woman. I don't really know where the genesis of all of this is, except Satan and this perversion of what God created as men and women. But what I do know is there seems to be such an aggressive orientation that is going on that says that we are going to drive the narrative where we are going to force you to use words that we tell you are acceptable, that you cannot say he or she. You have to ask them. I just had my second COVID-19 vaccine. On the questionnaire, it said male, female, other. I don't know what other is. To me, other would be reptile. Other would be
an animal of some sort.
Yeah,
That's what registers for me.
Yeah, it just. There's nowhere in my mind that I would think that I would say that I was. That's the choice. You're a man or a woman, and it seems like there's such a. And everything historically has been follow the money. Yeah. There had to be some real financial gain to create a movement of some kind which was going to benefit somebody. Now, Planned Parenthood benefits from this agenda.
That's right. And it's big news this last week.
Yeah, and I just learned that this last week when it came out that Planned Parenthood financially benefits from this. Well, that explains a whole lot in the motivation to continue to advance the cause of abortion. Now tack on to it this. If a woman has the right to her body, then a man has a right to his own body. Now they expand their marketplace, and it never goes away because then you have executive orders on combating discrimination on the basis of gender identity or sexual orientation, but it goes even further than that. And it's driving it down to what we're teaching our children.
That's right.
And it's crossed a line that says that parental rights in an adoption process have to be terminated. That's a legal requirement, that if I put my child up for adoption, my legal rights have to be terminated. In education, I'm not abdicating my rights as a parent to teach my child who they are. But I am being forced to conform to an educational system that is now incorporated into textbooks and bringing it to 4- and 5-year-olds. The most ridiculous thing that I've heard is that in hospitals with new births, parents are not allowed to put the gender on the birth certificate. They have to wait until the child is of age so that they can then complete the process of defining themselves.
Yeah, it's madness. It's the idea that Planned Parenthood is now finding it lucrative because that's what they're about. Is they're about the bottom line. They don't really care. If you look at what has happened to so many lives destroyed, is they really are finding it lucrative to give out hormone therapy to children. This should give people pause that we're going to do something as diabolical as stopping the natural process of puberty in little girls and little boys so that they can transition and, to continue to give, because once you start that, then you have to have those hormones. These people live on these hormones, and that becomes a market for them. And it really is about the process of making money rather than taking care of people. And they are the antithesis of do no harm. They are harming so many people, as is the testimonies of those with great regret that even did try to take their lives and then finally were able to get the help that they needed to come out of the madness. And there are so many stories of that. It's the same thing like with abortion. These women that come to Christ and they have great regret. They murdered their child, and it was a state offering idea of goodness. So they are really brokers of evil is good and good is evil, as is in the days of Noah. And this is where we are today. We're having this and other hormone therapies and DNA splicing and all this other stuff that's going on in our world is really pretty dark. And so I see the creator of the universe. He's in heaven, and he is watching, and he is drawing a line. And I think we're going to see the saints of God, those that are faithful with persecution, become brighter and full of light. And those that hate the truth are going to become darker and darker and darker. And even what we saw through this whole, what I call a real debacle in the whole presidential election and everything in Congress, and to have Nancy Pelosi actually communicate, we're not going to use pronouns, and then of course a week later starts saying she's a mother and a grandmother, and it's like they continue to be the expression of hypocrisy. They say, do as we say, not as we do. And it's really tragic with the kind of leadership that we have. And biblically, we know that when you get turned over as a nation, you get turned over to wicked leaders. And that's part of even judgment. And yet God is so kind that even in judgment, he is after people and souls and even the church. He's after his people to be purified and to be blessed. And so we don't have nothing to fear except God alone. God is to be feared, but God is at work in all of this, and we do have hope, and your listeners need to have hope, and that other people, in talking about all this dark stuff, there are people that are experiencing life transformation and finding lasting freedom. And that's what's really exciting, and this documentary that we were in association with in his image.movie is the website. That thing is continuing to go like crazy. They sent out over 17,000 DVDs last week, and over 355,000 views, and all of this since the latter part of October. And so the people are hungry for the truth. And even this last week, I had 2 different pastors contact me that were like, "Wow, we did not know about this, and we want to do a conference at our church." So it looks like we'll be going to Ohio and San Antonio and California, And it's pretty exciting that people are really like, please come and share the truth in our community, and we will actually gather other pastors and people, and we will equip the church. And so and that's just our little ministry. Now you multiply that times 60 or 100 other little organizations that are also very busy doing stuff. There is a work, just because people aren't seeing it, there is a work of the grace and the gospel of Jesus going forward in regard to all of this nonsense, and this, this really, it's an attack on our children. And so I'm excited about that. You know about Denise Schick and her books, and
Of course.
she's got some new books, with being able to go into the libraries with all these children's books, and it's very exciting to give the option of hope, and we are about that hope.
Absolutely. We're talking with Stephen Black, author of Freedom Realized, Finding Freedom from Homosexuality and Living a Life Free from Labels. He's the executive director of First Stone Ministries. You can find more about them at firststone.org. We're going to take a short break, and when we return on the other side, we're going to talk about this new executive order. We're going to talk about what kind of legislation we can expect. We can talk about what kind of persecution is lying around the corner for ministries, for pastors, and for free speech in America, impacted by this LGBTQ plus agenda. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, host of Revealing the Truth, Revealing the Bible, and Revealing Prophecy, seen every week on the Igniting Nation Broadcasting Network. Our daily on-demand programming is available on our Apple and Android apps, and on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Android TV. We broadcast live Monday through Friday through our apps, on our website, ignitingnation.com, and on Facebook Live. You can listen daily on our audio platforms on Spotify, iTunes, TuneIn, and iHeart. Our lineup of best-selling authors bring you the most in-depth biblical insights into the most pressing issues of our time, including prophecy, Israel, spiritual warfare, and a wide variety of contemporary Christian issues impacting the body of Messiah around the globe. If you missed the live show, you can always catch up on the Igniting Nation YouTube channel. Follow us on social media and join us as we endeavor to heal the nations with the Word of God.
With today's smartphone technology, news, information, sports, and entertainment is widely available and almost unbounded. But what about the information that believers in Yeshua are looking for? Well, now there's an app for that. Igniting a Nation now has apps available for Android and iPhone. With our app, you'll gain access to everything you would in our website, from our featured guests to our live streaming shows. Visit Google Play or the Apple Store and download Igniting a Nation's new app today.
Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, inviting you to study right by my side through the Biblical Truth Library. Imagine having access to over 1,000 hours of audio and video teachings available to you through our website on a subscription basis, or via our Apple and Android apps on an a la carte basis. Whichever method you choose, we promise to deliver new insights into the living Word of God, as seen through the eyes of a Jewish believer. If you hunger and thirst like millions around the world for a deeper walk with God and the revelation of new understanding of the Scriptures, visit ignitingnation.com and click on the Biblical Truth Library, or on any device with our free app. Don't let another day go by without receiving your heart's desire for a new depth of understanding into all of God's Word. Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, inviting you to join me and my special featured guests twice per month with Rabbi Zeb Parat and Carl Gallups, and monthly with Dr. Michael Heiser, Dr. Michael Lake, Dr. Timothy Jennings, Dr. Mark Baker, Dr. Jeffrey Johnson, Drs. Michelle and Mark Sherwood, Dr. Kim Moss, Derek Gilbert, Peter Rosenberger, Brandon Gallups, Steve Fair, Stephen Black, for in-depth insights into Israel, prophecy, the unseen realm, the brain, spiritual warfare, overcoming shame, mysteries of the Bible, prophetic insights, the sensational and the supernatural, caregiving, addiction recovery, understanding the divided heart, same-sex attraction, and much more. We're proud to feature some of the greatest biblical minds from both Israel and around the United States. Check out our featured guest lineup and 24/7 feed on ignitinganation.com or watch by topic on any device with our free apps. If you can't find what you need, you're just not looking in the right place. Follow us on social media and download our free apps today. Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, inviting you to join me and Israel's #1 rated guide, Edo Canaan, for our annual Israel trip. Our 2022 trip is now open for registration for our 18th trip to Israel. Our trip will take us from Tel Aviv to the Galilee, down to the Dead Sea, and 4 nights in Jerusalem. You will walk where Yeshua walked and watch the Bible turn from black and white to living color. Visit ignitinganation.com/events and download the registration form today. No, it's not too early to take advantage of our payment plan designed to fit any budget. All of our trips sell out, and we want you to experience this life-changing journey. Registration is now open for April 2nd to 13th, 2022, and we promise you, you will never read your Bible the same way again. We do on the third Monday of every month, the 11 o'clock hour, we host Freedom Realized, finding freedom from homosexuality and live a life free from labels, with Executive Director of First Stone Ministries. You can find out more about Stephen Black and First Stone at firststone.org. Stephen, welcome back.
Thank you, sir. Good to be here.
As we look at the coming months and what we can expect to come out of Washington and how it's going to change the narrative, change the level of persecution, change what freedom of speech is, what do you anticipate happening in the coming months?
Well, they will start with the education systems, the financial institutions, and the medical community. And what they will do is at every level, and should probably back up, what this is basically the Equality Act that has been signed by Biden as an executive order forcing everyone across all 50 states that have any kind of federal connection to embrace LGBTQ plus sign as equal to. So these behaviors are equal to a person's race or a gender, a sex. So male or female is now equal to bisexual or polyamorous or pedophilia behavior. And I'm not exaggerating that. That's what that plus sign means. And people need to take note of that plus sign, because we're talking a chaotic idea, an ideology, which really is a secular humanistic philosophy that is now being pressed upon the public, that now all financial institutions, if any way that a bank or insurance companies in any way are connected federally, they will have to bow down to the acceptance and making normative. So you will see, like you had mentioned, your application for the vaccine. You're going to see that normalized now. And what that means is that there will be the other with gender, and it will be forced on everyone. Now, this is very disturbing for anyone who has their children in school, because this will now be mandated, as is already in 3 states, California, Illinois, and New Jersey, where there is a demand that from kindergarten up, you must teach that homosexuality, transgenderism, and other forms of orientation are equal to mommy and daddy, are equal to heterosexuality. And so this is now a mainstreaming of LGBTQ ideology in the minds of children. This will also be forced for people being accepted in colleges. People have not thought through this, but there will be a demand that if there's any federal money in coming into a college for student loans or higher education, or if you are a large medical association, that you must bow down if you receive any federal money to help with any kind of, like the pandemic. You will have to bow down to LGBTQ plus sign secular humanism. And so this is what we're up against with what the Democrats, very few Republicans ever sign on to this, because they see the inequality in what they call the Equality Act. But this is what Joseph Biden signed into order on his inaugural day, and most people never. I never even saw it in the news. I actually had to go look for it and found it.
Help me understand something. Why have the religious rights attorneys not filed a case against the federal government for violation of the Constitution of establishing a state religion called secular humanism? This is
actually, Rabbi, I know some lawyers and some people that recently have been brainstorming that this is going to become one of the marching orders to bring this battle to the Supreme Court. And so this is in the works. And so this may just take some time for people, honestly, to wrap their minds around it, because when it's first unpacked, people don't connect the dots. They don't have an understanding that this ideology really is secular humanism, that it's based in faith. It's not based in fact. This is really a religion. And these people are promoting, even at the American Psychological Association, it's not based in fact. It's based on emotion and feeling and their faith. So it is a substance of things, of their things hoped for, the things that do not have evidence. So it really is faith-based. It's obviously, from our perspective, it's rooted in demonic and in satanic from the pit, of the assault on the creation of God, which is His image, male and female. And so this is what we're up against. But there will be some legal pushback. Here's the other thing that is already starting to take place: is there are a group of really and right now it's unfortunately a small group, but there is a group of governors of really conservative states, and thank God I'm in one of those states. But there's a few other states that are saying, you know what, we're not going to stand for these executive orders and for these unlawful laws promoted by Congress, and we're going to nullify. And so basically what's getting ready to happen, and is already taking place, the states that are conservative and believe in, common sense, I'd like to say, they're going to say, no, thank you, Washington, and we are standing against this. And it is unfortunately going to be one of the most divisive things that has ever transpired in our country, this attack on children and this secular humanism with LGBTQ plus sign ideology.
So what do we do? What is the clarion call for you and I and others to step out and to speak up?
Well, it's two-pronged from my perspective, and that is you've got civil government, and it is important for Christians to be involved in civil government. And so that begins with your school boards, that begins with your local, the need to be involved in city councils, in library councils, in and actively involved to where you consider prayerfully about even being in your state legislatures, and consider a career in law. If you really want to be the salt of the earth, and the light of the world, God may be calling, especially this next generation, these younger people, to consider these things. And then there is the spiritual component, and that is that we never capitulate on what is right and what is just, what is beautiful in the sight of God, and that we must proclaim truth and the gospel of Jesus Christ wherever we have an opportunity. And I like, even at the very small encounter of a drive-through window, picking up food, or a delivery of a FedEx guy, or a UPS man, to give them something to make them think about God and eternity. I'm always about that, and it can be some of the funnest and most exciting encounters. And even for the introvert, the person that would say, well, I'm kind of an introvert. It's like, try it. You might find that it is one of the most exciting things that God has for you, to just very simply, like the Living Waters coins that that Ray Comfort puts out with the Ten Commandments and the gospel on the other side, and to give one of those coins to somebody. It's an actual physical coin, and it's they're not that expensive. You buy packages of those and give those things out and talk to people. So it begins with us believing that there is an eternity, that people are living eternal beings and souls worth saving, and that we would be busy about making a difference in sharing the gospel, and that each of us are preparing for our own judgment seat time with Jesus. And that's why people say, oh, Stephen, you're so radical, you're always. I'm like, get a glimpse, ask the Lord to give you a revelation. This life is but a vapor, and we definitely need to be busy about doing the Father's will.
Firststone.org, First Stone Ministries. You have many resources available at firststone.org.
That's correct.
You are aligned with people like Denise Schick and others that we know well. And I want to encourage our audience to support the financial needs of these organizations to survive the onslaught, because they are being censored, they're being attacked, they're being personally attacked, and there is a persecution that's coming at the larger Christian level, but is going to be laser sharp at those who are attacking the agenda of this new liberal cancel culture that is trying to cancel everything that they stand for. Now, you as a loving parent whose child has come to them and says that they think they're a boy or they think they're a girl, there are legislation about withholding any kind of therapy at all from children 18 and under. Right now, I don't know of any therapies that are prohibited from adults. And so it's 18 and under. But you as a loving parent need to educate yourself, and that's what First Stone Ministries is about, educating you to know what your rights are, to know how to find out who in your local area can assist you in loving your child well, this is not loving your child to the point of telling them they're wrong or stupid or inferior or you have failed as a parent. You have no idea what the influences are. Hopefully it will come out that something has impacted them, something has affected them, and there is no restriction on therapy for a child seeking therapy or help, or a parent seeking child therapy for a child that's been molested. No prohibition. So if we can get to the catalyst, if we can get to the root of what precipitated this identity crisis, we may be able to circumvent a lot of this and not deal with the top issue, but deal with the core issue. And that's extremely important in identifying what the shame that may be driving the identity, that may be driving them to seek out alternative lifestyle choices. That the government cannot legislate. That is allowed, correct me if I'm wrong, if your child is molested, they have a trauma situation and are perfectly legally able to seek psychiatric or psychological help for that trauma.
That is correct, except there is the nuances around that depending on who you're talking to in what state and what has already been passed, is that you cannot, in some of these places, because of that child's trauma, they may now begin to say, well, I think I might be gay. And you couldn't intervene in that regard in some of these places. That's how bad it's getting. So definitely it is important to deal with the trauma and the grief, the great sorrow and confusion that comes in to the soul of a child who has been molested, sexually introduced to distorted materials, as is high 90% of the people that we minister to. When you look at, prepubescent distortions, they were introduced to pornography, they were introduced to sex talk, they were introduced to things that are just about as traumatic as childhood sexual abuse. And people go, well, it seems to be increasing. It is increasing. It is increasing because cultural norms have been lowered and there's more access to things that are so destructive. And it's like, if you were to, take drugs and give them to all the kids at school, you would definitely see an increase in drug abuse. Well, that's what's happening sexually in our country. And so this access needs to be regulated. And there are some states that are now looking at making it to where technologically it's going to be more difficult for there to be an access to pornography. So there are some things good that are happening. It hasn't passed yet, but there is legislation that is being considered to protect the children.
Okay, we've been talking with our good friend Stephen Black at firststone.org. If you are searching for answers, great place to start, great ministry, and if you're looking to support advancements in this area and defense in this area, firststone.org, and get a copy of Stephen's book, Freedom Realized. You can get that by visiting ignitinganation.com. Look at today's broadcast calendar. It says, love the interview, get the book. Click that link and it'll take you right to a copy of that book. Stephen Black, we thank you for being a sound voice in an unreasonable time, and we appreciate your consistency and look forward to seeing you right back here on the third Monday of the month.
Well, thank you. It's an honor, sir. God bless you.
God bless you. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you the next edition of Revealing the Truth.